Right off the bat, I love limited run games. They offer a way to immortalize smaller independent games with physical copies, which prevents them from disappearing like most of the WiiWare titles did after Nintendo discontinued the Wii Z Shop. So this video's title's not questioning whether or not limited run games the company's a scam, but what might be considered a tad shady is when devs release a game digitally knowing damn well they're gonna release a physical copy someday. Cause that denies collectors the option to wait for said physical, which causes many people to buy the same game twice. But is that really a scam though? Well, sometimes it kinda is. But even in those cases, I still think that's the best way for digital and physical to coexist, all things considered. What things are there to consider? Well, turn your brightness up to full blast, press your face against the screen so you don't miss anything, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, the world's 7th worst acrobat of all time camera, to tell ya. I'm well aware that most developers who release games digitally and then re-release them later on as physicals legitimately have no way of knowing whether or not these games are going to be successful in the first place. And when a game fails digitally, it's not as big of a deal as when a game with physical copies fails, because being stuck with a surplus of unsold games in your condo just might cause your significant other to leave your sorry ass. But then we've got games like Sonic Mania, which Sega pretended was some kind of experimental project that might not be profitable to make physicals for. But it's kinda hard to believe they didn't know that game was gonna sell out the ass. I mean, they released a physical collector's box with a digital download after all. So in that particular incident, yeah, it kinda was a scam to re-release a physical later on. But like I said in my video specifically talking about that incident, I'm so glad we did have to wait for a physical. And for the same reason why I'm happy with how Sega went about releasing Sonic Mania, I had absolutely no problem buying my favorite indie game of all time, Celeste 2 times, even though pretty much everyone knew that game was going to be a success and get its own physical at some point. And the reasons why I don't really mind paying twice is because games that get physicals later on usually have all the patches and DLC on the disc. Meanwhile, games that had DLC like Breath of the Wild won't be as cool to have in the future unless they do some kind of re-release with the DLC. But even then, the millions of copies that were already sold are going to be seen as the crap versions. And that makes me wonder if the digital now physical later methods were the future's heading. One of the biggest reasons why people love physical media is because once you own it, it's yours forever. Or at least that's how it used to be anyway, before the internet pretty much ruined that. Don't get me wrong, the internet does way more good for gaming than bad, but the standard used to be for developers not to send games out for production before they were finished. Seems like common sense, I know, but one of the biggest downsides to bringing the internet to gaming is how many games are unplayable without a day one patch. A lot of times developers do this out of laziness, and other times it's meant to trick people into thinking physical media is obsolete. After all, digital sales give companies more money, and it also suffocates the used games market. A lot of people defend massive day one patches by bringing up the fact that it's a lot more complicated to make games now than ever before. But I still think that if you're gonna put a game on physical media, you should have the damn thing completely finished before sending it out for production. But it's pretty friggin' lame when physicals are unplayable or incomplete, because you'd never see anything like this done with movies. Can you imagine if early reviews for movies were all negative because critics watched them before the CGI was finished or if certain scenes didn't have audio? That never happened because even with the internet as prevalent as it is, nobody's ever once thought to patch a movie. But for some reason in the gaming industry, it's completely okay to ship paperweights out to retail. And I know some of you might be thinking, shut up you butt trader, if you have internet then what's the problem? Well, because first of all, even in 2019, not everybody's got a reliable internet connection. And secondly, every game that has a massive day one patch is pretty much going to be useless when I'm stuck on Earth with no internet after the rest of you are raptured. One of the best things about physical media is the preservation aspect of it, which is why it is actually kind of a problem when it comes to DLC. And I'm not going to say anything bad about DLC unless it's already on the disc. It's awesome to get more of a game that you like later on, and definitely one of the positives to internet being a part of gaming. And even though a small part of me actually misses glitches being a part of a game's history, it's definitely a good thing to patch game-breaking bugs that slip through the cracks. Because even though I hate it when incomplete games are sent to retail, I'm not a big enough dick to pretend it's unreasonable for a few botches to make it into the final game. And as long as developers truly believe that games are complete when they send them out, then I can't say that games shouldn't get minor patches. And since the majority's so accepting of these massive day one patches, then I can't really fault the developers too much for ignoring turkeys like me who think it's lame. I think the blame mainly lies on the fact that people either don't think about it or just don't care. But with unfinished games sent to retail being as common as it is, many people are questioning the point of physicals in the first place. And I think that kind of thinking's ass backwards. Because aside from game preservation, physical media also provides consumers with power by giving them the option to lend, trade, or sell games if they don't want them anymore. Plus, if you look online for more than 5 seconds, physicals are almost always cheaper. A lot of people who swear by digital usually blatantly ignore all these advantages for some reason though. However, even though I prefer physical, I've gotta admit there's actually a lot of advantages to digital too. It's a lot quicker to buy games digitally, it's more convenient to not have to change discs or cartridges. And then of course the main point of this video, there's the fact that physical media is becoming less and less effective for preserving games. Cause even if every developer stopped shipping incomplete games to retail, there's still the issue of preserving DLC. Even games that never needed patches still aren't gonna have DLC in a post-apocalyptic world, which does water the value of physical media down an ass air. And that's where I think Sonic Mania and a lot of games from Limited Run are kind of thinking long term, and it might actually be where the future's heading. Regardless of how people may feel about games being all digital someday, I think it's hard to deny that it's not gonna happen eventually. If Nintendo and Sony stopped treating digital goods as lesser than, then it wouldn't be so bad for the most part other than not being able to sell your games anymore. But at least we'd be allowed to return them if we didn't like them, and not have them be locked to one console if they're good enough to keep. If you buy anything on iTunes, you're not gonna have to buy it again when you upgrade your device, and that's how it should be. If buying digital games on the Switch meant I'd own them forever, I'd go hog wild. But after building a sizable digital library up on my Wii, I'm not exactly enthusiastic about being burned again. Japanese companies can be pretty stubborn and out of touch sometimes, so if the future of gaming's all digital, then hopefully we see some changes. Even though it's likely inevitable digital is going to take over at some point, I don't think it's going to happen as soon as people are predicting, since Japanese consumers still love physical media. Not every region has great internet yet. But much like with music and movies, it can't be denied that physical media is slowly declining. But I really don't think it's going to die out for good, or at least it doesn't have to. Also, like music and movies, I think there's always going to be enough people who want physical games to stick around. I mean, people still collect vinyls, so even if consoles lose disc drives and cartridge slots, I still think it'd be lucrative for companies to make external drives. The only ways that digital-only consoles will take off is if they're either really cheap, or if developers trick people with their lazy and shady tactics. And unfortunately, I think it's only a matter of time before that day comes. But I dare say that optional external drives might be the future we're looking at with physical releases. And since it's a novelty for collectors, it'd probably only be for popular games, and they'd come out way later with all the DLC and patches intact, which is pretty much what Limited Run Games is doing right now. It'd suck for the preservation of games that failed to gain popularity, and it'd even be pretty bad for some games that are so bad they're good. But with digital media likely taking over someday, I don't think it's a bad compromise. We might lose the option to resell games we don't like, but improve return policies that at least soften the blow. All I know is that as a collector who's trying to be realistic, this is the best solution I could think of where everyone wins. But two people who I could realistically say are legends are today's patrons of the day, John Polish Impossible to Say and Travis Denton. If you want to join these two legends, then consider supporting this channel on Patreon for loot boxes and Polaroids in the mail. And if you pick up one of our shirts or mugs that are guaranteed to land you a hot date, then you can make cameos in our video doing whatever you want by simply sending us pictures or videos of you rocking it like these badasses right here. What do you guys think of developers releasing games digitally only to re-release them later as physicals? Are you glad it's more definitive with the DLC and all that? Do you think there's ways physical can survive in the future? Or do you not even care about physical media at all? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to see more videos like this. And if you want to help this channel grow, then simply liking and sharing goes a long way. My name's Cameron, and I'll see you next time.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty. Thank you for your support.